How does a man lose his home, his cars, his company, and even his own child in one day just because he turned 50? Why did my wife wait for my birthday to hand me divorce papers and say I was nothing? What I found inside locker 243 at Union Station is the reason I stopped begging and started using the systems she trusted. My name is Aaron Cole. I turned 50 on a Tuesday, and I learned that a quiet life can still break in one sharp moment. That morning started like most mornings had started for the last year. I woke up before everyone else, made coffee, and stood at the kitchen counter looking at the same clean surfaces. The house looked perfect. It always did. That was Lena's focus. A perfect home, a perfect schedule, a perfect image. I used to think it meant we were doing well. Lately it felt like a showroom I was allowed to dust, not a place I belonged. Lena came in wearing a calm smile. She moved like she had already planned the whole day, right down to the last minute. She told me we would do a nice dinner. She said it like a gift. She also said we needed the right people there. I asked who she meant. She answered in a way that did not feel like an answer. She said it was important for our future and for Maya, and that I should not make it difficult. Maya walked in a few minutes later. She used to run into my arms every morning when she was little. She used to press her face into my shirt and talk fast about dreams, school, and tiny worries. Now she came in with her phone already in her hand. She gave me a quick look and a small nod like I was a polite neighbor. I told her good morning and asked if she wanted pancakes. She said she was not hungry. Then she sat at the table and started typing. I tried to keep the moment normal. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself it was just a hard season, that teenagers change, that marriages have dull years. I also told myself I had done my part. I had built a company from a rented room and a second-hand desk. I had taken clients to lunch when I could not afford lunch. I had missed school events so payroll could go out on time. I did all that because I believed in stability. I believed in taking care of the people I loved. When I mentioned work, Lena's face changed for half a second. It was subtle, but I saw it. She said I should not talk about work on my birthday. She said I should relax and let things be handled. Her words sounded caring. The feeling was not. After breakfast, I went to the living room to get my jacket. I noticed a gift bag on a chair. It had my name written in neat letters. Next to it was a flat envelope, thick and stiff, with no label. I did not touch it. I did not ask. Something in me did not want to know yet. By late afternoon, the house felt like it was waiting for something. Lena moved around, checking her phone, adjusting small details, telling Maya to change into something nicer. Maya did not argue. That was another thing that felt strange. If I asked Maya to do anything, I got a sigh and a slow answer. If Lena asked, Maya moved right away, not with love, with training. We drove to the restaurant in separate cars. Lena said she wanted to arrive early with Maya to settle in. She told me to come a little later because she had something special planned. I watched their car pull out of the driveway, and for a moment I felt like a guest in my own story. I arrived 10 minutes before the reservation time. The restaurant was one of those places with soft lighting and a quiet sound that comes from money and careful manners. A hostess looked at her tablet and smiled like she had practiced it. She led me to a private room in the back. Inside, a few people were already there. I recognized 2 of them from business circles, people I had not invited, people Lena had met at events and always called useful. Another woman I did not know looked up and gave me a polite nod, then went back to her phone. Then I saw Grant Pierce. I had met Grant once before, briefly, at a charity event Lena insisted we attend. He was smooth and loud in a controlled way, the type of man who takes up space without raising his voice. He wore an expensive watch that caught the light every time he moved his hand. He stood near Lena like he belonged there. Lena greeted me like we were actors on a stage. She gave me a quick hug that felt like a photo, not a touch. She said everyone was excited to celebrate me. She said it with her smile turned on. Maya sat beside her mother. She did not sit beside me. I took my seat and put my phone on the table. I tried to ground myself in small details: the smell of bread, the weight of the chair, the sound of silverware from the main dining room. I told myself to stay calm and observe. Lena raised her glass first. She spoke about new chapters and fresh starts. She talked about how hard the last few years had been. She made it sound like we had both struggled the same way, like we had both failed in the same way. She talked about Maya's future and how she needed strong direction. She used words like stability and security, but the way she looked at me made those words feel like fences. Grant also spoke. He did not say my name much. He talked in broad terms about responsibility and what a real provider should do. He said some men do not adapt and families suffer because of it. His tone was calm, but his meaning was sharp. I listened and nodded. I did not argue. If I pushed back in that room, I knew what would happen. Lena would look hurt, Grant would look concerned, the guests would look uncomfortable, and I would become the problem. The food came, but I barely tasted it. Lena watched me the way someone watches a clock, like she was waiting for the moment she had set. Then she reached under her purse and pulled out that stiff envelope I had seen at home. She placed it on the table in front of me like she was handing me a menu. Her hand did not shake. She looked directly at me and said in an even voice that this was the right time to be honest. She said I was broke. She said I was past my prime. She said I was nothing. She said she was taking control of the future because I could not. She said it like a statement of fact, not an insult. That was the part that chilled me. It was not anger, it was judgment. The room went quiet in a careful way. People looked down at their plates. A man cleared his throat. Someone adjusted a napkin. I picked up the envelope. It felt heavy, not because of paper, but because of what it meant. I did not open it. I did not need to. I knew what it was. Lena continued speaking. She said the house was hers now. She said the cars were hers now. She said the business was already being handled. She said Maya would stay with her because Maya needed a stable home and I could not provide it. She pointed out that I was sleeping at the office sometimes anyway, like she was presenting a simple reason. Maya stayed quiet. She did not look at me. Her face was tight, like she was trying not to feel anything. Grant leaned forward slightly and spoke like he was offering advice. He said it would be easier if I accepted it quickly. He said it would be better for everyone. He said if I tried to fight, I would only embarrass myself. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. I took a slow breath. I put the envelope on the table and folded my hands. I told Lena I understood what she was saying. I told her I would not create a scene. I told her I would do everything properly. I said it calmly, because I meant it in the moment. I did not mean I agreed. I meant I would not play the role they wanted me to play. Lena watched me closely, like she expected me to break. When I did not, her eyes narrowed for half a second, then her smile returned, softer, almost kind. She said she was glad I could be mature about it. The dinner ended in a strange, polite silence. People stood, hugged Lena, and told her they admired her strength. One man patted my shoulder as if I was leaving a hospital. Maya walked out with Lena without looking back. I followed them to the parking area. The night air felt cold and sharp after the warm restaurant. I asked Maya if we could talk for a minute. Lena answered before Maya could. She said Maya was tired and it was not the time. She said Maya needed peace. Then she told Maya to get in the car. Maya got in without a word. Lena turned to me. She said, very calmly, that I should not come back to the house tonight. She said it would upset Maya. She said she would arrange a time for me to pick up a few things later with someone present to keep it civil. Grant stood a few steps behind her. He did not smile. He looked at me like I was a solved problem. I stood by my car and nodded. I told Lena I heard her. I told her I would not make things harder for Maya. Lena seemed satisfied. She got into the car, and they drove away. For a moment, I stood there under the parking lights, listening to the distant traffic. I felt empty, but not wild. I felt like someone had quietly removed the floor under me, and I was still waiting to feel the drop. I got into my car and tried to start it. The engine started, but a warning message flashed that I did not recognize. I turned it off, then on again. The message stayed. My phone vibrated on the passenger seat. It was a bank alert. It was short and cold, like a machine speaking. I opened my financial app. It loaded, then showed an error about permissions. I tried another app I used to access company systems. It asked me to sign in again. I typed my usual login. It refused. I tried again, slower. It refused again. A small line of text appeared that made my stomach tighten. It said my access was removed. I stared at the screen for a long time. The parking lot was quiet. The restaurant lights glowed behind me. My hands stayed steady on the phone, but I could feel something shift inside my chest. Not anger, not panic, clarity. I put the phone down. I looked straight ahead through the windshield. I realized the dinner was not the first move. It was the performance. The real moves had already happened, quietly, while I was still trying to keep the peace. I drove back to my office because I had no other place that felt safe to sit and think. I did not want to sit in my car outside the house. I did not want to call a friend and explain it all, while I was still trying to understand it myself. I wanted walls, a door, and a quiet room where I could hear my own thoughts. My office was in a small building near the edge of the business district. It was the kind of place that looked normal in the daytime and empty at night. When I parked, I noticed the security lights had changed. They were brighter than I remembered. I told myself it was nothing. Then I tried to open the main door with my access card, and it did not work. I stood there for a few seconds, holding the card against the reader again. It blinked red. I tried the second door. Same result. I felt the same calm pressure behind my ribs. Not panic, not anger, just the clear fact that someone had already arranged the room before I even stepped into it. I walked around to the side entrance where the cleaning crew sometimes came in. That door was still on a basic lock. I had a key. It opened. The air inside smelled like carpet and old coffee. I turned on a few lights and walked to my office, listening to my own steps. I sat down at my desk and looked around. The room was the same. The books were in the same place. My framed photo of Maya at age 6 was still on the shelf. Her hair was messy, and she was smiling like the whole world was simple. I stared at that picture for a long time. Then I did what I always did when I needed to steady myself. I started going through facts. Fact 1. Lena did not decide this on my birthday. That dinner was a stage. The plan was already in motion. Fact 2. She had support. Grant did not show up by accident. Fact 3. Maya had been prepared. Her silence was not random. I leaned back in my chair and remembered how Lena and I started. I met Lena when I was 31. I was still building my company, still learning how to be a leader without becoming a loud person. Lena worked in event planning then. She was good at reading people and making rooms feel smooth. She had a way of holding my arm in public that made me look more confident than I felt. When we started dating, she said she liked that I was calm. She said most men she met were trying to prove something. I did not try to prove anything. I was busy trying to build something. In those first years, I worked long hours. I did not go to bars. I did not travel for fun. I spent weekends fixing client problems and writing proposals. Lena handled the social side. She introduced me to people. She organized small dinners. She taught me how to dress for certain rooms. I appreciated it. I thought it was teamwork. When Maya was born, my whole world changed. I used to come home tired and still lift her up like she weighed nothing. I would walk around the living room with her on my shoulder and tell her about my day in simple words. She would laugh at my serious tone and pat my face with her small hands. Those moments felt like the reason I was working so hard. As the company grew, Lena took over more of our home life. She also took over our finances. She told me it would reduce stress. She said I did not need to think about bills or insurance or taxes. She said she was good at details. I believed her because she was good at details. At first, it seemed helpful. If I asked about a payment or a statement, she would say it was handled. If I asked for a password, she would say she had it saved. I told myself it was fine. I was busy. I trusted my wife. Then the small changes started. If I bought something, even a simple tool or a book, Lena would ask why I needed it. Not in a curious way, in a judging way. She would say we should not waste money. Then a week later, she would show me a new handbag or a new piece of furniture and call it an investment. If I wanted to plan a family trip, she would say it was not the right time. She would say Maya had school. She would say I had work. Then she would plan a trip with Maya and call it girls' time, because I was always busy anyway. If I tried to talk about our relationship, Lena would say I was overthinking. She would say I should focus on being grateful. She would say other women would not put up with a man who was slowing down. I did not respond with drama. I responded with effort. I tried to be better. I tried to be more present. I tried to plan dinners. I tried to schedule weekends away. Lena would accept the gesture and then change the plan last minute. She would say something came up. She would say I should be flexible. Maya changed too, slowly, like a light being turned down one small step at a time. When Maya was 10, she still ran to me after school. She would tell me stories while I made snacks. When she was 12, she started going to her room first, but she still came out later to sit with me. When she was 14, she stopped asking me questions. When she was 15, she started asking Lena for permission, even for things I was sitting right next to. I tried to correct it gently. I would tell Maya she could talk to me directly. Lena would step in and say she was just teaching Maya structure. She would say I was too loose, too easy, too soft. She said a teenager needed firmness. She said Maya needed strong direction. It hurt, but I told myself she was trying to help. I told myself I was not perfect. I told myself being calm was not the same as being absent. The hardest part was how Lena spoke about me when other people were around. In private, she would act like I was a tool that worked. In public, she would act like I was a man she had to manage. If I told a story at a dinner, she would interrupt to correct details. If I made a joke, she would smile and say I was cute. If someone asked about my company, she would answer for me, as if I was not there. I remember one night at a neighbor's party, a man asked me what I did. I started to explain, and Lena laughed lightly and said, I like to make it sound complicated. Then she explained my business in a simple way, like she was talking about a hobby. The man nodded at her and barely looked at me after that. I told myself I should not be sensitive. I told myself it was not worth an argument. I told myself my value did not depend on how a room saw me. But it kept happening. And over time, I started to feel like I was watching my own life from a few steps behind. That year, the year before my birthday, my company went through a shift. We were moving into new contracts and new systems. It was a good shift, but it required focus. I was working more. I was tired. Lena knew it. She used it. She started telling people I was worn out. She started saying I was thinking about stepping back. She started talking like I was almost retired, even though I was still the person solving the hardest problems. I saw it in small places. A client would call and ask if I was still in charge. A vendor would email Lena instead of me. A staff member would mention a new direction that I had not announced. Each time I asked Lena about it. Each time she said I was imagining things. The week before my birthday, I noticed something else. The mail on the kitchen counter was always opened before I saw it. If I picked up an envelope, Lena would say it was not important. If I asked to see statements, she would say she was organizing them and I would get confused. I told myself again to stay calm. I told myself I would look into it later, when work was less intense. Then my birthday happened, and I watched her use a private room and a calm voice to cut me out of my own life. Sitting in my office that night, I opened my phone again and tried different logins. My banking access still showed an error. My company access still showed removed. I tried my email. It worked, but some folders were missing. That was when I realized this was not just a marriage problem. This was a control problem. I stood up and walked to the small break room. There was an old couch there, the kind that had been moved from one office to another until nobody remembered where it came from. I sat down and stared at the ceiling. I thought about calling Lena. I did not. There was nothing to say that would change the facts. Calling her would only give her a chance to shape my words into a story where I was unstable. I thought about calling Maya. I did not. I did not want to push her further away in the first hours of this. I decided to sleep in the office. I told myself it was one night. I told myself I would wake up with a plan. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from someone at work, Tomas Ibarra, my operations lead. Tomas was not dramatic. He was the kind of man who kept his head down and kept the place running. He wrote that there had been a meeting that afternoon. He said Lena and Grant had come in and spoke with a few managers. He said they told people I was stepping away for health reasons. He said they told staff to route questions through Lena, for now. He said some people looked confused, but nobody wanted trouble. Then he wrote one more line that stayed in my mind. He said Grant had smiled and called me an old man who should rest, like it was a friendly joke, and the room had laughed like they were expected to. The next morning, I washed my face in the office bathroom and looked at myself under bright fluorescent light. I did not look dramatic. I looked tired and older than I wanted to admit. I also looked like a man who had been carrying a lot alone for a long time. I made coffee from the small machine in the break room. It tasted like burnt paper. I drank it anyway. Then I sat at my desk and opened a blank notebook. I wrote the date at the top. I wrote the time. I wrote what happened at the restaurant in simple lines, like I was documenting a work incident. I did not write feelings. I wrote facts. I did not know yet what I would need, but I knew I would need a clean record. Around mid-morning, I tried calling Maya. She did not answer. I waited an hour and tried again. Still nothing. Then a message came in from Lena. She said Maya was at school and needed space. She said I should not keep pushing. She said I should focus on accepting the situation like an adult. I read it twice and set the phone down. I did not reply right away. I learned over the years that quick replies turned into traps. If I replied fast, Lena would pick one phrase and build a whole story around it. If I stayed quiet, she would fill the silence with her own version anyway, but at least my words would not be used as props. At lunch, Grant sent me a message. He addressed me by my first name, like we were friends. He wrote that he hoped I was taking care of myself. He wrote that Lena was trying to handle everything smoothly. He wrote that the best choice was to sign quickly, so Maya would not be stressed. He also wrote that if I fought it, the public story would not be kind to me. That last line was the real point. It was not about peace. It was about controlling the room. I looked at the message and did not answer. Instead, I took a screenshot and saved it in a folder. I named the folder with the date. Then I stood up and walked to the reception area. The building was quiet. A few people passed by my door and looked away like they were not sure if they were allowed to greet me. I saw Thomas near the copy machine. He looked surprised to see me. He stepped closer and spoke softly, like he did not want cameras to notice. He said he was glad I was there. He said the meeting from yesterday felt wrong. He said Lena and Grant spoke like they had authority over operations, not just my personal life. He said they told people I was stepping back and that questions should go to them. He said some staff looked uncomfortable, but they stayed quiet. I asked him if anything was put in writing. Tomas said he did not see anything official, but he heard a manager say, "Legal already cleared it." Tomas said he did not like that sentence. He said it sounded rehearsed. I thanked him. I told him to keep doing his job and not take risks for me. He tried to protest, but I stopped him with a small hand gesture. I told him I would handle it properly. I walked back to my office and closed the door. For a few minutes I sat still. I could feel the urge to run somewhere, to confront someone, to prove I was not weak. That urge did not help me. It was the same urge that leads men into mistakes. I did not want mistakes. I wanted clarity. I opened my phone and looked at my recent calls. I noticed how many were Lena's calls and how few were mine. I noticed how many messages from her were instructions, not conversations. I also noticed something else. Over the last months, Lena had been sending me reminders about appointments that I did not remember scheduling. Some were real. Some were vague. She would write that I needed to rest, that stress was bad for me, that I should listen to her. If I questioned it, she would say I was forgetting things. If I insisted I was not forgetting, she would say I was defensive. I saw the pattern clearly now. It was not one big lie. It was many small pushes, all pointing in one direction. Later that afternoon, Maya finally called me. Her voice was controlled. It sounded like she was trying to be older than she was. She said her mother told her I was staying away by choice. She said her mother told her I needed time to think. She said she did not want conflict. She said she wanted normal school days. I asked her if she believed I would leave her without talking to her. There was a pause. Then she said Lena told her I was not stable lately. She said Lena told her I was getting confused. She said Grant said he had seen men fall apart when they could not keep up. I listened and let her finish. I asked Maya one simple question. I asked her when was the last time she saw me confused in a real way. Not tired, not quiet, confused. She did not answer right away. Then she said she did not know. She said she just wanted peace. That word again. Peace. It was being used like a leash. I told her I would not drag her into any argument. I told her I loved her. I told her I would always be her father, no matter what anyone said. I asked her if she would meet me for a short coffee on the weekend, just the two of us. She said she would ask her mother. That answer hit me harder than any insult. A child asking permission to meet her own father. After the call, I sat at my desk and stared at the photo of Maya again. I felt grief, but I kept my hands steady. I told myself that I would not fight for Maya with noise. I would fight for her with stability and truth. That evening I went to a public library near my office. It was quiet and smelled like paper and dust. I sat in a small study room and opened my notebook. I drew a timeline. On the left I wrote home. On the right I wrote company. Under home, I wrote dates where Lena took over more control. When she started managing all accounts. When she started opening mail first. When she began planning trips without me. When Maya started pulling away. Under company, I wrote dates where clients started calling Lena instead of me. Dates where staff mentioned new direction. Dates where I noticed missing folders in my work email. Dates where I had sudden meeting requests that Lena knew about before I did. As I wrote, the fog in my mind started to clear. It did not mean I had answers. It meant I knew what questions to ask. I opened my laptop and drafted a list of record requests. I kept the language simple and professional. I asked for copies of company notices, governance communications, and access change logs. I also wrote a list of personal records I needed to request through official channels, the kind you can request without drama. I did not send anything yet. I just prepared it. I stayed in the library until closing. When they announced the last minutes, I packed my bag and walked to my car. The air outside was cold. The streetlights made the sidewalk look pale. On the drive back to the office, I remembered the old box in my storage closet, the one with items from my first years in business. I had not opened it in a long time. When I got back, I went straight to that closet. I pulled out the box and set it on the floor. Inside were old notebooks, early product sketches, and a few framed photos from my first small office. At the bottom was a briefcase, dark leather, scuffed edges, a brass clasp. I had not thought about it in years. Samuel Raines had given it to me in 2009. Samuel was my mentor and my first serious investor. He was not loud, but people listened when he spoke. He had a way of looking at you that made you tell the truth without feeling attacked. When I was younger, I thought confidence came from volume. Samuel showed me confidence came from preparation. In 2009, after a hard meeting with a client who tried to push me around, Samuel handed me that briefcase and told me it was for later. He said there would come a day when I would need a steady hand more than I needed a strong voice. He said I should keep it sealed until I understood what he meant. I thought I understood. I did not. Now I sat on the office couch with the briefcase on my lap. My hands rested on the leather for a long time. I felt the weight of the years in it. I felt the weight of trusting people too easily, and the weight of learning too slowly. I opened the clasp. Inside, everything was neat and deliberate. A small folder, a sealed envelope, a thin notebook with Samuel's handwriting on the first page, and resting on top, a single folded note. I unfolded it carefully. It was short. It was written in clear, simple letters. It said that when my life fell apart, I should go to locker 243 at Union Station. That was it. No explanation, no extra comfort, just a direction, like a lifeline thrown into the future. I sat there and read it again, then again. My mind tried to make it smaller. It tried to say it was old, that it was nothing, that it could not matter now. But Samuel was not the kind of man who left pointless instructions. I placed the note on the coffee table. I looked around my office. The building hummed softly with air conditioning. The city outside kept moving like nothing had changed. I realized something simple. Lena and Grant believed I had nowhere to go and nothing to stand on. They believed I would accept whatever story they gave me. They believed my calm meant I would surrender. Samuel's note told me I was not standing on empty air. I was standing on something I had not even opened until now. I folded the note again and put it back in the briefcase. Then I took out my notebook and wrote one more line under the timeline. Union Station, locker 243. The next day I did not rush to Union Station. I forced myself to slow down. A note from 2009 could be important, but I still needed a clean path forward. If I moved too fast, I could make it easy for Lena to paint me as unstable. I decided my first move would be quiet and normal. I would gather information the way a careful person does. I would ask for records. I would take notes. I would keep my voice steady. I started with the smallest thing that could prove the largest thing. I opened my email and searched for account change notices, access warnings, and any message that mentioned my role. I found a few short system emails about updates, but nothing that explained why I was locked out. That absence was its own signal. When access changes are normal, there is usually a trail. When access changes are meant to trap someone, the trail is often hidden. I called my accountant, Elise Park. I did not call her at home. I called her office number during business hours. I left a simple message. I said I needed a meeting about personal and business records. I said I would bring my ID and any files I still had. I kept my tone neutral, like this was routine. Elise fit me in the next afternoon. Her office was small and clean, with a narrow hallway and a conference room that smelled faintly of printer paper. Elise greeted me with the kind of calm face that accountants have when they are used to people walking in with problems. She offered water. She asked how she could help. I told her, in plain words, that Lena had served divorce papers and that I was suddenly locked out of banking and company systems. I told Elise I did not want gossip. I wanted clarity. I asked her what she could legally provide and what I needed to request through official channels. Elise did not react with shock. She did not give me comfort lines. She just asked questions, one at a time. She asked when I last had full access. She asked what accounts were in my name, what accounts were joint, and what accounts were managed under Lena's login. She asked if I had copies of past tax filings and bank summaries. I told her I had some. but most were stored at home or in Lena's files. Elise nodded slowly. She said she could not guess. She said she could only work with documents. Then she said something careful that made my ears focus. She said it was unusual for a business owner to have so little direct access. She said it was not illegal for a spouse to manage things, but it often created control risk. She said the first step was to request original statements directly from institutions, not summaries from a household folder. I asked her if she had noticed anything strange earlier. Elise paused. She chose her words. She said she had seen a change in who spoke for the family. She said Lena started answering questions meant for me. She said she also noticed a shift in how certain business expenses were described. She did not accuse anyone. She just said the descriptions became vague. I thanked her. I asked her to list exactly what I should request and from where. Elise wrote a short checklist in neat handwriting. Then she slid it across the table like she was handing me a map. When I left Elise's office, I sat in my car for a minute and looked at that checklist. It was not a weapon. It was a path. It was also proof that I was not imagining things. This was not just a marriage ending. This was a system being used. I drove back to my office and set up a simple folder system on my laptop. I made one folder for personal records, one for company records, and one for messages. Inside each folder, I made subfolders by date. I also started a paper binder because digital files can disappear when someone else controls an account. Paper is slow, but paper is hard to erase without leaving a trace. That evening, I wrote a short message to Lena. I did not argue. I did not insult. I did not plead. I said I would communicate through proper channels going forward. I said I would not discuss the case in person without structure. I also asked, politely, for a time to collect essential personal items and a few documents, including my passport and my old tax copies. Lena replied within 10 minutes. That speed told me she was watching for my responses. She wrote that she would arrange a time later and that she wanted everything to be calm for Maya. She added that if I caused stress, she would protect Maya from chaos. She used that phrase like a threat wrapped in a blanket. I took a screenshot and saved it. Then I did not reply. The next morning, Tomas texted me again. He said there was another meeting scheduled at the company. He said it was framed as a business continuity meeting. He also said my name was on the agenda, but not as a speaker. He said Grant was expected to join. I read that message 3 times. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I made a list of who had the power to schedule such a meeting and who would benefit from pushing me out quietly. I did not assume anything. I wrote names and roles. I wrote what I knew and what I did not know. Then I called Priya Deshmukh, the attorney Elise had recommended in the past for contract questions. Priya and I had spoken once years earlier about a vendor dispute. She had been calm and precise. I trusted that style. Priya's assistant scheduled me for a consultation the next day. The office was in a taller building downtown, the kind with polished floors and quiet elevators. I arrived early and sat with my hands folded, listening to the soft sounds of people walking past. Priya greeted me without drama. She asked me to explain the situation in order. I did not give her a speech. I gave her a timeline. I said what happened at the restaurant. I said I was locked out of accounts. I said there was pressure to sign quickly. I said my daughter was being used as the reason for everything. Priya listened and took notes. Then she asked me what I wanted. I told her I wanted lawful, clean outcomes. I told her I did not want public chaos. I told her I wanted my relationship with my daughter protected. I also told her I wanted the truth about finances and company control because I did not believe the story Lena was selling. Priya said that was possible, but only if we stayed disciplined. She said I should not send emotional messages. She said I should not show up at the house without agreement. She said I should not get pulled into side conversations with Grant. She said everything should be documented and steady. She asked if there were any unusual assets ownership structures, or old agreements connected to my business. I hesitated because I remembered Samuel's briefcase. I did not show Priya anything. I did not even explain details. I only said there was something from my mentor that might matter, and that I needed time to understand it. Priya nodded, like she understood that some things should be handled carefully. When I left Priya's office, I felt something new. Not excitement, not anger, just steadiness. I was not alone in a room with Lena and Grant anymore. I was moving into rooms where rules mattered. Over the next few days, Lena and Grant became louder in small ways. It was like they thought silence meant victory. Grant sent another message saying he hoped I was being reasonable. He said delays would hurt Maya. Lena sent a message saying she would not discuss finances directly and that everything would go through lawyers. That would have sounded normal if she had not controlled those finances for years without letting me see them. I kept saving messages. I kept writing dates. I also started requesting records. I requested basic account histories through official portals and phone verification. Some requests were approved quickly. Some were delayed. A few required in-person verification. Each time, I noted the time and the person I spoke to. I did not raise my voice. I treated each call like a process. One afternoon, I received a call from a bank representative. The representative said there had been recent changes to notification settings and authorized devices. The representative did not accuse anyone. The representative spoke like this was a normal task, but the timing told me enough. Those changes did not happen by accident. I thanked the representative and asked what steps were required to restore fair access. The representative explained the steps in a neutral tone. I took notes. I followed those steps. Later that same day, I got an email from my company's system administrator account. It was not written by a person I recognized. It was written in a formal tone, saying that access policies had been updated and that certain permissions were being reviewed. That message did not explain who authorized the review. It did not mention my role as founder. It treated me like a normal employee being managed. I forwarded it to Priya and Tomas. I did not write extra commentary. I only wrote the date and time in the subject line. The more I stayed quiet, the more Lena tried to provoke a reaction. She sent a photo of Maya at a nice cafe with a short caption about fresh starts. There was no direct message, but the point was clear. She wanted me to feel replaced. I looked at the photo, felt the sting, and did not reply. I saved it. That weekend, I finally got a short call with Maya again. She sounded tired. I asked her how school was. She answered in short lines. I asked her if she missed our morning routine from when she was younger. There was a pause, and her voice softened for half a second. Then she said her mother was calling her. Before she ended the call, I told her one simple thing. I told her I was not leaving her. I told her adults can argue, but a parent does not stop being a parent. I told her I would keep everything calm and proper. She did not answer with warmth, but she did not argue. She just said she had to go. After the call, I sat in my office and looked at Samuel's note again. I still did not go to Union Station. I wanted one more thing in place first. I wanted my travel to be quiet and clean, with no announcement. I did not want Lena to know where I was going or why. I booked a flight under my own name with my own payment method. I checked the details twice. I printed the confirmation and put it in my binder. Then I looked at my calendar and saw something that made the situation feel even more staged. A mediation date had been set quickly. Too quickly. It was framed as helping everyone move on. But I could see the logic now. Speed helps the person who controls the story. Speed helps the person who controls access. Speed helps the person who wants you to sign before you understand. I closed my calendar and sat still for a long minute. I felt the urge to rush. I did not let it win. I packed a small bag that night and placed it by the office door. I did not tell anyone I was leaving. I did not post anything. I did not call Lena. I did not call Grant. I only sent a short note to Priya's assistant saying I would be reachable by email and that I would follow instructions. Then I turned off the lights in my office, sat on the couch, and listened to the building settle around me. The plan was still quiet. The next steps would still be lawful, but the shape of it was starting to form, piece by piece, like a puzzle finally showing its edges. I woke up before sunrise and packed slowly. I kept the routine simple on purpose. I folded shirts, checked my wallet, and placed my notebook and binder in the side pocket of my bag. I did not pack like a man running away. I packed like a man going to a meeting. I cleaned the office kitchenette after myself. I wiped the counter, threw away an empty cup, and turned the lights off. Small actions helped my mind stay steady. When your life feels like it is being rearranged without your consent, doing one clean thing at a time matters. Before I left, I checked my phone for new messages. There was one from Lena. She wrote that the mediation was confirmed and that I should come prepared to be reasonable. She also wrote that Maya was doing better when things were quiet and that I should not disturb her with emotional talks. I read it, saved it, and did not reply. Grant had also sent a message. He wrote that he hoped I was not planning to make things messy. He wrote that people in my position sometimes try to hold on too long. He wrote that I should accept that it was time to step aside. I did not answer him either. I saved it and moved on. At the airport, I stayed in the background. I did not wear anything that stood out. I did not make calls in line. I did not post anything. I kept my eyes forward and my mind on process. While I waited to board, Priya called me. Her voice was calm, like she was checking a list. She asked if I had received any official filings yet. I told her I had the envelope from the dinner and that the rest was still being routed through lawyers. She reminded me to avoid direct arguments and to keep every exchange short and clear. She said this was the part where many people make mistakes. They try to win with words. The system does not reward words. It rewards records. I told her I understood. Then she asked about the mentor note again. I told her I was following it and that I would not do anything reckless. Priya said she trusted my judgment, but she also said one more thing. She said if I found anything important, I should not discuss it with anyone except her until we understood what it meant. I agreed. When my flight landed, the city air felt different, heavier and colder. I took a car to Union Station and watched streets pass by like scenes I had never been part of. People walked fast, trains rumbled in the distance. Everyone looked like they had somewhere to be, and nobody looked at me twice. That helped. Union Station was loud and bright. The ceiling was high, the floors were polished, and the sound of rolling bags moved in waves. I stood near a column and watched for a minute. I let myself blend into the crowd. I was not here to be seen. I was here to follow a direction left by a man who never wasted words. I took the note from my wallet and read it again. Locker 243. I folded it and put it back. Then I walked to the customer service desk where lockers were managed. There was a line. I waited my turn, like everyone else. When it was my time, I spoke in a normal voice and asked about locker 243. The manager behind the counter was a man in his 60s with neat hair and a neutral face. His name tag said Mr. Klein. He did not show curiosity. He showed routine. He asked for my identification. I handed it over. He asked why I was requesting that locker. I told him I had a note from the renter and that the contents belonged to me now. I did not offer a long story. I did not mention my marriage. I did not mention my company. I did not mention anything that could turn this into drama. Mr. Klein typed into his computer. He frowned slightly, the way people do when a record is old and hard to retrieve. He asked me to wait while he checked something in the back. I waited at the side of the desk, hands relaxed at my sides. I listened to station sounds, announcements, footsteps, the hum of vending machines, a child laughing somewhere. All of it felt normal, and that normal sound made my situation feel unreal. Mr. Klein returned with a folder. He opened it and looked at a paper inside. He asked me again if I had a note. I nodded and showed him the folded paper without letting it leave my hand. He did not read the whole thing. He only checked the locker number and a date written in the corner. Then his posture changed slightly. He did not become friendly. He became careful. He said locker 243 was still listed in an old storage registry. He said there were rules for releasing older lockers and that he would need me to sign a standard retrieval form. He said he also needed to verify something against the registry notes. He explained it like he had explained it 100 times before. I asked him what the process was and how long it would take. He said it could be done today, as long as the locker was still sealed and no other claim existed. He said he would escort me to the corridor. I nodded. I thanked him. I kept my voice steady. While he stepped away to get a key, I noticed a camera mounted near the ceiling above the desk. I also noticed 2 cameras in the main hall facing the corridor entrance. That mattered to me. I had learned over the years that neutral cameras can become your best witness when people try to rewrite events later. Mr. Klein returned and asked me to follow him. We walked through the station, past travelers and staff, toward a quieter side corridor. The air changed. It smelled more like metal and cleaning solution, less like food and crowds. We reached a locked door. Mr. Klein used a staff key. Inside was a narrow corridor lined with metal locker doors. The fluorescent lights made everything look flat and honest. There was no place for drama here. It was just metal, numbers, and policy. He walked slowly down the row until he reached a door with the number 243. He stood beside it and looked at me. He said before he opened it, he needed me to confirm again that I was claiming it under the note and that I accepted the station's rules for abandoned property retrieval. He said it in the same tone a person uses when they do not care about the story, only the procedure. I said I understood and agreed. I signed the form on a clipboard he held out. Mr. Klein took a key ring from his pocket and selected a small key with a tag. He inserted it into the lock and turned it once, slowly. The lock made a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. He did not open the door right away. He paused and asked if I wanted him to witness the opening or if I wanted privacy. That question surprised me. It meant something about this locker had made staff cautious in the past. I told him I preferred a witness. I said I wanted everything to be clean and clear. Mr. Klein nodded once, like he respected that answer. He pulled the locker handle and opened the door a small distance. He did not look inside. He simply held it open enough for me to step closer. I stepped forward and placed one hand on the metal edge. My heart rate increased, but my hands stayed steady. I reminded myself again of Priya's words. No reckless moves, no excited calls, no quick conclusions, just careful steps. I did not reach inside. Not yet. I looked for a moment at the dark space within, the way you look at a room you have not entered in years. Then I closed the door again gently. Mr. Klein watched me without expression. He did not ask why. He just waited. I told him I needed a moment to think and that I wanted to open it at a time I could document properly. I asked if there was a way to schedule an official opening with a witness and a clear timestamp. Mr. Klein said that was possible. He said the station could provide a standard witness note and that the corridor had camera coverage. He said we could do it the next morning during his shift. He offered a time. I accepted the time. I signed one more line on the form acknowledging the rescheduled retrieval. Mr. Klein locked the door again and returned the key to his ring. We walked back out to the main hall, and the noise returned like a wave. People moved around us, carrying bags, checking schedules, living their normal lives. I thanked Mr. Klein for his help. He nodded and returned to his desk. Outside the station, I sat on a bench for a few minutes and looked at the city traffic. I did not feel relief yet. I felt something more useful than relief. I felt direction. I opened my binder and wrote down exactly what happened. The time I arrived. The name on the tag, the procedure, the corridor, the rescheduled opening. I wrote it like a report. Then I called Priya. I told her I had located locker 243 and that I had arranged a witnessed opening the next morning. I did not describe anything else. Priya said that was the right choice. She reminded me to keep my day calm and to avoid contact with Lena and Grant unless required. I found a small hotel near the station. It was not fancy. It was clean and quiet. In the room, I set my binder on the desk and placed my phone on the nightstand face down. I checked my messages one last time. Lena had sent another note saying she expected me at mediation and that she wanted a fast resolution. Grant had added a short message saying delays would make me look worse. I did not answer. I saved them. I lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I thought about Maya again. I thought about how she used to run into my arms. I thought about how she now asked permission to speak with me. That thought hurt, but it also sharpened my focus. I told myself I would handle this properly. I would not win by shouting. I would not win by begging. I would win by staying inside the systems they respected, the systems that keep records and follow rules. When I turned off the light, I could still hear the distant sound of trains moving through the station, steady and scheduled, like they did not care about anyone's story. That was the kind of steadiness I needed now. The next morning, I arrived at Union Station early. The main hall was quieter than the day before. The lights were still bright, but the noise had not fully started. I met Mr. Klein at the locker desk at the exact time he gave me. He brought the same folder and the same clipboard. He checked my ID again. He said the station would note the opening time and that the corridor cameras would capture it. He asked if I wanted an extra witness from staff. I said Mr. Klein was enough. We walked back through the side corridor. The metal doors looked the same, row after row, like numbers on a calendar. Mr. Klein stopped at locker 243 and read the number out loud as if he was confirming it for a record. He unlocked it and opened the door fully this time. He stepped half a pace back and let me look first. Inside were 3 items, packed tight and clean. There was a sealed document pouch with a printed label. There was a small USB drive in a plastic case, and there was a thick envelope with Samuel Rain's handwriting on the front, addressed to me. I did not touch anything for a few seconds. I simply stood there and took in the fact that this had been waiting for 16 years. I could feel my pulse in my throat, but my hands stayed still. Mr. Klein asked if I wanted him to list the items on the witness note. I said yes. He wrote a short description in plain words and asked me to confirm it matched what I saw. I confirmed it. Then I used both hands to remove each item slowly and place it into my bag. Mr. Klein asked if I wanted to open anything in the corridor. I told him I preferred to do it in a private office setting. He nodded as if that was the sensible choice. He locked the empty locker again, wrote one final line on his form, and handed me a copy of the witness note. I thanked him and left the station without lingering. I went straight to my hotel room, set my bag on the desk, and closed the curtains. I washed my hands, then sat down like I was about to review a contract. I opened Samuel's envelope first. Inside was a letter written in his calm style. He did not try to comfort me. He did not praise me. He simply explained what he had seen in people over decades. He wrote that some people confuse calm with weakness. He wrote that some people build their plans around a man who will not make noise. He wrote that he helped me build my company, but he also helped me protect it, because success attracts control games. He wrote that in 2009, he insisted on a structure that would keep my work safe, even if my personal life became unstable. He wrote that he could not predict my future, but he could predict human behavior. Then he wrote clear instructions. He said, I needed to bring the pouch and the USB to a lawyer. He said I should not show it to a spouse, a partner, or any manager first. He said the goal was not revenge. The goal was a clean reset, through official systems. I sat back in my chair and held the letter for a long time. Then I placed it flat on the desk and opened the sealed pouch. Inside were organized documents already labeled. There was a notarized memo from 2009. There was a set of corporate papers related to my company's early structure. There were signature pages that looked like they were prepared for a future meeting. There was also a short written explanation of how control and licensing worked, written in simple language. I did not try to interpret everything alone. I did not call anyone from the hotel room to celebrate or panic. I made one call only. I called Priya. She answered and asked if I was safe. I told her I was fine. I told her the locker was opened with a witness and that I had the items. Priya said to bring everything to her office as soon as I could and to keep it sealed and quiet until then. I said I was already on my way. In Priya's office, she asked her assistant to clear a small conference room. She shut the door and told me to place everything on the table. She read Samuel's letter first, without comment. Then she went through the documents in the pouch one by one, careful and slow. After a few minutes, her face changed. Not into excitement, into focus. She said the structure Samuel set up was stronger than most people expect. She said my work, including key software rights and client licensing, had been placed into a holding entity tied to specific governance rules. She said there were clear triggers that limited who could claim control, and that those triggers did not match the story Lena and Grant were pushing. Priya also said there was a continuity packet designed for exactly this kind of situation. It included a plan to restore proper access, notify the board correctly, and block unauthorized control moves, all through formal process. She said it would not require shouting, it would require timing. She asked about the USB. I handed it to her. Her assistant brought a clean laptop used for document review. Priya opened the files carefully. The USB contained organized records, emails, system logs, and early agreements saved in a way that did not depend on my current accounts. It also contained a timeline prepared in 2009, with blank spaces meant to be filled later, as if Samuel expected someone would try to rush me and confuse me. Priya looked at me and said very plainly that the mediation date Lena scheduled would now work in my favor. She said Lena wanted speed because she believed I had no base to stand on. Priya said speed would now expose her. I asked what would happen next. Priya said we would keep it clean. She said we would file the correct notices and request emergency stabilization orders for access and business operations. She said we would also request that communication go through counsel only, because the pressure messages from Grant were already part of a pattern. She did not promise me a perfect result. She promised me procedure. 2 days later, I stood on the courthouse mediation floor with Priya beside me. The hallway smelled like paper, coffee, and disinfectant. People spoke in low voices. Nobody looked heroic. It was all normal work, which is exactly what I wanted. Lena arrived with her lawyer and Grant. Lena wore the same calm smile she used at the restaurant. Grant walked beside her like he belonged there. He nodded at me as if we were two professionals finishing a deal. Lena's lawyer spoke first in the mediation room. He described me as a man who was stepping back, financially strained and emotionally unstable. He said Lena needed full control to protect Maya and keep life stable. Priya listened without reacting. Then she placed a thin stack of documents on the table and spoke in a steady voice. She said the story being told did not match the records. She said there was an established governance structure that could not be bypassed by social pressure or private meetings. She said access changes were documented. She said the timing of those changes mattered. She said the pressure to sign quickly was also documented. Lena's smile softened for a moment, then froze. Her lawyer asked to see the papers. Priya handed copies across. Lena leaned in, reading faster than she meant to. Grant's posture changed. He stopped looking relaxed. He started checking his phone under the table, then stopped when the mediator looked his way. The mediator asked a few direct questions. The questions were not emotional. They were practical. Who authorized the access removal? Who told staff I was stepping away? Who changed notification settings? Who represented themselves as having authority? Lena answered in general words at first. Then Priya referred to the dates and the names. The mediator's face became more serious. Lena's lawyer asked for a short recess. In the hallway, Lena tried to speak to me directly. She said we did not need to make this ugly. She said Maya would blame me. She said I was being stubborn. I did not argue. I told her we could speak through the lawyers. I said I wanted a clean outcome, not a loud one. Then I stepped back beside Priya. Grant moved closer and spoke quietly. He said I was making a mistake. He said people would see me as bitter. He said I would lose anyway. I did not reply. Priya did. She told him calmly that he was not a party to the case and that any further pressure would be documented and addressed. Grant stepped back and said nothing. When we returned to the room, the mediator stated new ground rules. The mediator said access and business operations needed immediate stabilization while the case continued. The mediator also said the business governance documents would be treated as controlling unless proven otherwise. Lena's lawyer asked for time. Priya agreed to time, but only under written conditions. Lena's face tightened again when she heard the words, written conditions. That same afternoon, Priya made calls while I sat quietly in her office and drank water. She said the board needed to meet immediately because the company could not operate under confusion. She said the documents required formal notice, and now we had it. By early evening, I was in the company boardroom for the first time since the birthday dinner. The table was longer than I remembered, or maybe I was just seeing it differently. A few board members looked uncomfortable. A few looked relieved, like they wanted someone else to carry the tension. The board chair opened the meeting and said this would be handled by governance, not feelings. Priya presented the structure Samuel had set up. She explained the holding entity, the licensing control, and the required process for any leadership transition. She explained that private meetings and social claims did not replace formal actions. Then she presented the timeline of access removal and messaging pressure. She did not raise her voice. She simply laid it out. One board member asked where Lena got the idea she could manage operations. Another asked who invited Grant into internal meetings. A third asked why staff were told I was stepping away without any board vote. Nobody defended Grant. Nobody defended the private meeting. The chair asked me if I planned to resign. I said no. I said I planned to stabilize operations and follow proper procedure. I said I was willing to work with the board on any future plan, but it had to be lawful and documented. The chair nodded. Then he picked up a single sheet of paper and slid it across the table toward me. He said the board was adopting an emergency resolution effective immediately. He said it restored my operational authority and revoked any informal role claimed by Lena or her representatives. He said all access changes would be reviewed under policy and all external communication